Oh my goodness. Hey, hi, it's Mike. Did you know that Abe and Bridget and me are trying to make a movie right now? Yes, right dang now. It's called Papa Bear and tells the poignant and hilarious true story of the time my dad came out as a gay furry when I was 17. If you care about that at all, please head to seedandspark.com/fund/papa-bear to find out much more about the project, how you can be a part, and earn really cool rewards for helping us out. See you there. Here's your pod. Thanks so much.
This movie is so sweaty.
It's so sweaty.
It is so much sweat.
It's
just pouring off everybody.
It has been recently spritzed. Every scene has been recently spritzed.
Every man just beads.
Yeah.
It's like that Key and Peele sketch, that gif where he's just like pouring water out of his neck or
really
whatever.
Is. Yeah.
It's that. It is so drastic.
Nobody thinks of the grundle. You know what I mean? Like, nobody's thinking about the places there also sweat. Like, you're not thinking about it, you know?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I love that your mind goes immediately to the grundle. Like, that's the mind of a generation, Adam Ganser. Truly a nuanced genius.
Truly.
Apt for the times.
Truly.
Thinking of where that sweat pours out of. No, that's a good thought.
But,
and
right?
I'm glad to have it with you.
When I see just a mountain of sweat on a person, I'm like, well, I know where I'd be sweating that I would be hating if I was that sweaty. Like, just where is the discomfort? And I figured it out immediately. Also, I was saying this earlier when we were talking, but like, I was trying to think of another movie that was as sweaty as this, and the only one I could think of was Body Heat. You know,
yep,
like the sexy noir thriller.
Yeah, I mean this movie is pure sex, man.
I mean, yeah, dude, you're not wrong, and obviously you're perfectly setting me up, Coog, to run all the way into the danger zone here, because that is part of the argument we're going to be making today. Because today on Directorpiece Theater, we're going to be talking about Top Gun.
Top Gun. Yeah. You're Adam Ganser.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's me.
I'm Abe Epperson.
That's you.
You said it. We're Directorpiece Theater. We like to look at movies.
Sure
and
do.
from a directing standpoint, and then we go, you know what? We're directors. Let's talk about it. In kind of like an essay.
I love it. You're too loose, Cougar. You're too loose, Cougar. That's my favorite quote from Top Gun, by the way.
You know what my favorite is?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm coming hard. It's you can blink and miss it. It's in there. It's like 25 minutes in.
And it's also 25 times. They probably
say it a lot. They say I'm coming.
I'm sure
I'm
they
coming
do.
hard.
Yeah, of course they do.
Yeah.
Of course they do.
It's so what you got?
Great.
What are we slapping on the table today?
Cool. That's right. We're going to take this podcast into the ladies' room here.
Jesus Christ.
I know, terrible, isn't it? It's terrible. Today I want to talk a little bit about Top Gun as a propaganda film. This is a thing. It's not. It wouldn't be surprising to search on Twitter and look for references to Top Gun and find somebody who was like, it's propaganda. It's military propaganda. Because that's sort of a popular take now. And I wanted to talk about, if it's propaganda, how is it propaganda? Like, in what sense is that true? And does it qualify as, like, are we right about that? Like, is that a correct thing, or is that really a way of saying that it advocates a thing that we don't like? So I'm going to make kind of a clear distinction about what I mean by propaganda films by like defining propaganda a little further. Because if you get too loose cougar with the definition of propaganda, anything that has a message at all would be propaganda, right? Because it's an advocation of a cultural, social, or political comment. And that seems like not useful, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's another way of just saying, like, you have a thesis.
Correct.
And then there's also
Correct.
what society has, what we all agree upon the word means.
Correct.
In context.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm going to try to define what I think we've all agreed it means when we have to take the word seriously. And I would say, essentially, it's that an artist who is definitely trying to promote a viewpoint that's cultural, political, or religious, but also is intentionally misleading or misrepresenting the facts to do so.
Yeah. Misinformation.
Correct.
Yeah.
There's a misinformation piece of it. And the story is, in a sense, a deviation from what you might call the mainstream consensus. You know, I think that's also a quality of propaganda. It's attempting to move mainstream consensus to a different place than where it currently is.
Yeah.
Some people might argue with that second point. I just think it helps us to understand a film in that context, because
I think, certain types of propaganda definitely are that.
Correct.
Especially the memorable ones, like,
right.
Oh, the state is great.
Correct.
You know, those kinds of things, you know, like, don't, you know, the stuff where it's like, make sure you take your rations and give us your steel because we need bullets.
That's exactly it.
That's the stuff.
Right.
That's the good stuff.
I say that because if you're not trying to shift public opinion with propaganda, then what you're really doing is making a film that reinforces those cultures' values. You know, which again makes it difficult to assess the propaganda nature of it. This is a very philosophical argument, but
that's true. If you're a part of the propaganda machine,
then you don't know you're being propagandized, and so it's not effective.
True.
Right, so it's not effective. So that leads us directly into our conversation about Top Gun, and I want to give us just a little bit of some background on it. Top Gun is propaganda in the truest sense of the word, because Top Gun is definitely attempting to mislead us as an audience about the nature of military operations and sort of the meaning of that. But it's attempting to do so invisibly, which I would say is also a part of successful propaganda. When you don't know that it's happening, I think that that makes it a more effective propaganda tool.
That's successful story, baby.
Yeah. Well, it's especially successful for propaganda when you're trying to persuade, because you're eliminating contention points. That's really the point of propaganda. And I think that if there's any experience that we probably all can agree on, it's that Top Gun is not trying to make a controversial statement. Like, that's not the feeling that we get when we watch Top Gun. You know, Top Gun is supposed to be a fist-pumping, motorcycle ride alongside a jet taking off. You know?
Peck slapping.
Yeah, just peck slapping. Slapping all
sweaty,
the pecks.
coming hard, baby.
Yeah. Exactly. Now, just to be clear, even though I'm calling Top Gun propaganda, I'm not saying that the filmmakers who are making it are warmongering conservatives or anything like that. I'm not making that argument. In fact, I'm not going to speak to their personal political intentions at all because I don't know them. So even though they're making a political comment, I'm not going to talk about the political assumptions that they have, because the actual argument I'm making here is that the filmmaker's desire to make a film that was cool was made at the expense of the facts in this film. And in so doing, they made a propaganda film. Whether or not it's an actual advocation for their political philosophy, I couldn't say. I'm also, by the way, not moralizing about propaganda. I'm not here to say this is all evil or bad.
No, yeah, it's very Socratic of you.
Yeah, right. That's all I really want to do here. Yeah. I don't. So like, there are going to be some people who are going to feel I don't go far enough in condemning it, and I'm not going to condemn it, really. I'm just trying to describe the phenomenon of it and show how, as a filmmaker, you can do this, how it can happen. And, then you will be left to decide for yourself morally how you feel about that. So the title of this argument is based on a quote, and the title is Top Gun in Search of Star Wars on Earth. In Search of Star Wars on Earth. So
What the hell's that mean?
I'm going to tell you. So Top Gun was produced by two people who are legends in the movie business. The first is Don Simpson, and the other is a name you probably heard, Jerry Bruckheimer. Don Simpson died in 1996 at 52, but I just wanted to go through and like list some of the movies that he produced so you get a feel for his resume. Okay?
Yeah, do a little propaganda.
Yeah, here you go, baby. So his first one, Flashdance. He also made Beverly Hills Cop 1 and 2. He made Top Gun. He made Days of Thunder. He made Crimson Tide. He made Bad Boys. He made Dangerous Minds, and he also made The Rock, which I think was his last film. So Jerry Bruckheimer made all those films too, and also made the following films that you might have heard of. All the Pirate of the Caribbean movies, all of them. He made Armageddon. He made God in 60 Seconds. He made Enemy of the State. He made all the subsequent Bads Boys. He made every CSI show. All of them. All the CSI shows.
Yes.
And the National Treasure movies.
Yes. I'm so excited.
It's insane.
It's just fuel.
Yeah.
It's America fuel.
It's right, exactly. It's America fuel. And like Bruckheimer is probably one of the only producers that an average American could name. You know, like it's a Hollywood name that people could
everyone remembers
identify.
the tree for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's how successful as a producer he has been.
In the 90s especially. If you that tree, everyone's like, "Oh, I know what I'm
in for, baby." Slap on some sunglasses.
Let's light the fires and kick the tires.
I love it. I love what you're doing. So Top Gun is a project that was initiated and helmed basically by these two guys, because every Hollywood production basically needs a star to get it to move, to get it to happen. And in most cases, those stars are actors or directors, you know, who have a big reputation. In this case, these producers were so successful that they were able to get a project started without a lot of big names attached to it, and did that. So already that tells you these are the guys who are really behind this and whose vision it is.
It's wild.
It's wild.
It's wild to conceive of a time when like a studio could just say, "I want to make this movie," and then it's made.
I mean, right? Of
Isn't
course.
that wild?
I mean, there are still producers out there pushing this along, but what inevitably happens is those producers have to get somebody who gives this thing enough juice to happen. Right.
I'm just laughing at the prospect of like the auteur.
Right. The auteur producer.
Producer. Yeah.
But it's not like the producer has always been one of the most, if not the most powerful figure in a film set. Like that's not a new thing. It's that, but you still need more than expertise and movie authority to get a movie made. You need the cachet and, you know, a guaranteed bankable thing. And these guys were that, apparently. So the next question we should all be asking is, okay, what is it these producers wanted Top Gun to be? And I would say and define what they wanted it as they wanted Top Gun to be the sleekest, sexiest military fantasy in movie history. That is what they wanted. Okay.
Military fantasy.
It's a military fantasy. And I say this because it's all based on an article that was written about actual Top Gun, like an actual flight school in California. They read this article.
I love this.
They were like, we got to make this movie, right? Bruckheimer described his impression of this movie in the following way. He thought he was reading Star Wars on Earth.
Yep.
Star Wars
so it's
on
like,
Earth.
Bring it down. It's like Star Wars, the fighters, they're all...
Right.
Yep.
You see
simple stuff.
And like you can see exactly the thought process that led to that. You know, it's like, look, this is like there's awesome like combat stuff, and it's like, you know, there's an adventure, and he's already seeing this he's already seeing these fighter planes as this kind of real world franchise opportunity, you know? like and he's seeing it through the lens of successful movies, blockbuster movies. That's how he wants this thing to be. And like, I'm not here to say that's bad. I'm here to say that's already sending us in a very particular direction about an actual existing military operation.
You want to hear something funny?
Of course
I
I
don't
do.
want to stop you too
No, please.
much, but it's funny that you mention it, and I didn't even think about it. But this is kind of silly.
Great.
The source material, which was a book called Storm of Eagles, which is about Top Gun and like the flight school that occurred at Miramar in San Diego. My uncle was a teacher there.
Oh, so good.
And
Thank
they
you,
wrote
Abe.
about him. Yeah.
No.
And so he would be one of the instructors.
So you would be called son of Top Gun? Like that would be an appropriate
I'm like
title?
I am nephew of
Nephew
Top Gun.
of Top Gun.
Yeah. It's
Thank you.
wild.
Thank you.
His name was Eric Rulifson.
Great.
And he was I don't know his call sign or anything. We don't really talk.
Yeah.
Ice
Abe.
I mean, he's dead
It's
now.
probably Ice
but,
Abe.
like,
That's what I'm going to call him.
yeah, it was probably
Ice Abe.
Well, yes, it was Abe. Actually, it was just Abe, for no reason. Anyway, I just think that that's funny because anytime anyone brings up Top Gun was based on a real thing, I'm like, yeah, baby.
Yeah. It was based on us.
It was based on me. By proxy, I'm actually good at planes.
Of course you are.
That's what this logic
That's
is.
where I
like
thought
I
we
could
would
go
go.
and fly like a fighter plane right now if we wanted.
I'm thrilled that you held on to this information till this very moment, even though I've known you for almost 15 years. You held on
That's
to this
true.
until this moment.
That's true.
Right, we're
it's
fighting
funny
the
because
MiGs.
I have a few friends where it was literally the first thing that I told them.
Incredible. This is
I was
incredible.
like, "Hey, what's your name?" Abe. Hey, by the way, did you know that my
I'm Top Gun?
uncle was Top Gun? Anyway,
Did you know
let's get
I'm
back
Top
to the.
Gun?
Did you know that I'm Top Gun
So
by
good.
proxy? It's my only claim.
This is so
God,
good.
I have nothing.
I'm thrilled by this. Thank you.
Anyway, successfully derailed. Let's get back on task.
We were too loose. We're gonna fly all the way home now.
Yeah, I'm a Maverick, baby.
Of course you are. By the way, Top Gun's I think my dad's favorite movie. Like if my dad had to pick one movie, it's got to be this.
It's
he
gotta
loves
be.
it. I
It's
love
a
it too.
total
I
dad
love Top
movie.
Gun. I don't want to pretend like I don't love it. I do. So
Yeah.
the question is, why, if you're Bruckheimer, do you want to make Star Wars on Earth? And like this isn't super complicated. I just want to show like the progression of thought here. It's success, money, recognition, the obvious things, right? This is in a way an episode of Succession where it's like, look, I have this personal goal and I am willing to bend reality to make that happen. And I'm not, again, I'm not even accusing him of being corrupt in doing that. I'm just saying this is the progression of how this happens. I also think it's natural for any filmmaker to want their thing to be successful. It's also natural for them to do everything in their power to make that happen. So that it has real world consequences. So how did we make this military fantasy that Jerry Bruckheimer and Don Simpson imagined? So it started with 11 writers. 11 writers.
Yep, more the better, baby.
Right.
That's the American way.
So many
Just
writers.
pound it with writers.
And what's fascinating about that is there were a lot more people who refused to write on this film, in part because they were continuing to dilute the authenticity of it in order to make it more exciting.
Right.
Incidentally, Top Gun Maverick, which came out last year, is currently being sued for copyright infringement based on the original article, which is just kind of a fun factoid that it's all coming all the way back to that, I don't know if they're going to succeed or anything. I just think that's an interesting wrinkle
It's
here.
interesting. The article itself.
Yeah, because that's what they based the entire franchise on, was this article. And I'm pretty sure the argument's going to be that it no longer corresponds enough to be a copyright infringement. Like, I'm pretty sure that's going to be the argument, or at least part of it.
I mean, if they can straight up just take a movie from a pitch and write a different movie as a studio, which has happened in Hollywood, they can take an article and just say, based on true stories, I don't owe anyone or anything. But I get that if you use people's likeness and say this person or something like that in this region, this, group of people, their reputation is on the line.
You don't own
so.
the concept of Top Gun. You own the details of this story. If we leave them behind far enough, it doesn't matter if we were inspired by that. Which is, I think, probably what the argument would be. Right. In any case, as they are developing the script and then certainly in production, they hired an actual Top Gun instructor who was not Abe, named Peter Pettigrew.
They should have
hired Abe.
Wait, no, they didn't.
That's what I read. Peter Pettigrew is the name of this person.
That's the name of a Harry Potter character, though.
Is it? Is that true?
Yeah.
Peter Pettigrew?
Isn't that the rat man? Isn't that the rat? I don't know.
I don't know. I'm not going to Google it.
I think... Okay.
That's the name of the guy, or unless I copied the wrong name.
I'm gonna, for the rest of your story, I'm gonna envision
little rat
that
boy.
tiny little rat man.
Go. Rat man, the flight boy. So he was an actual Top Gun instructor, okay, and his job was multi-tiered, but basically two-pronged, okay? The first part is he wants to make sure the military's interests are honored, right? Because he is a linchpin in getting the military to cooperate. If they don't cooperate, this movie's not possible. Right? So he's there to make that relationship work. Okay, he's also there in the way that all advisors are to give, this is what really happens side of the production, right? This is how it really works. He's the authenticity guy, right? And so as the movie progressed, he got increasingly like, hey, man, that's not how it works. He kept having more and more, I don't want to say altercations because it might have been civil or even friendly, but like he kept challenging them and saying, look, you're undermining reality. And their response, and this is a quote, is we're making this movie for mom and pop in Oklahoma. They won't know the difference.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
I just want to come back to mom and pop in Oklahoma because I think that's
mom
another
and pop
interesting
in Oklahoma.
concept. Yeah.
And his third job was to be Ron Weasley's rat.
Is it the same name?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. I love this. I love
it's just a great one of those things that's like a Douglas Adams thing.
It surely is.
Like that's like, wow. what would be the chances of those two weird things being true? Anyway, it's not ironic or anything.
But it's not
it's
zero.
Just weird.
That's the important thing is that it isn't
That's
zero.
the important part.
Yeah.
But yeah, mom and pop in
Oklahoma who will not know the difference. Right? So that's the argument. Now, obviously the military had to have script approval for this project to go, because if they don't agree to it, there is no Top Gun, right? The impact of that was mostly to tame down and curb any specific political setting. So, for instance, the first conflict that happens where Cougar lost it and turned at his wings, that was supposed to happen over Cuba in the script. And the military is like, absolutely not. It has to happen over
They're like
generic international waters.
Mom and pop will know what Cuba means.
Exactly.
But
correct.
Yeah.
Exactly. So Abe just did a perfect job of saying this, but like essentially once you've removed the specificity of the conflict, it's no longer about a conflict, about who we're fighting. It's now about the fighter jets themselves,
Right. How much does Hollywood get in terms of currency of just making new stories by saying like the parallels or like the thing that they're trying to satirize or whatever the art form, they just go, yeah, you imagine like FBI agents or people, they got a lot of cases,
right. Exactly.
So it could be any number of things. It could be any number of
places. Doing. Yeah, exactly.
But the reality is like, no, this is this one detective's whole life for 10 years and it came to fruition or whatever. It's just they bend and it's what you're saying.
And a lot of those rules are done just so that you don't get bogged down in like the boring technical details of a job that are not filmically interesting.
Right.
And I'm sure that's a lot of what's happening behind the scenes here is like they're eradicating, like, I don't care about how the wheels have to come up like, 20 minutes into flight or whatever. I don't care about that.
Mm-hmm. But you can also fudge other things.
Right. Well, removing it from a specific area and a specific conflict is means that you are now trivializing the use of military force. A thing that we're going to continue to talk about. So now I want to talk a little bit about Tony Scott. This is Directorpiece, so I do want to get into Tony Scott and his work. So Tony Scott, at this point, had only
This is
directed one feature, as far as I could tell, and the major credit was it was a 1983 lesbian vampire film with Susan Sarandon and David Bowie, and it's called The Hunger. And all I can say is I haven't seen it, and that's clearly one of my greatest mistakes. I don't why have I not seen this?
It's a great mistake you've made here.
Okay, is it good? Have you seen this?
I've seen it. Yeah.
How is it?
It's not good.
Yeah, I didn't think it would be.
But you and I are watching it later.
Oh God.
Yeah, it's
okay. All right.
David Bowie is sultry.
I'm sure he's of course. I'm sure he's amazing in this. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I just
it's
think
all the vampire you could want.
A 1983 lesbian vampire story is very strange. And I don't mean strange like bad. I mean strange
1983
like
doing a lot of that work. Yeah.
For that time.
Yeah.
Right.
And Tony Scott too. But like this is at the beginning of his career.
Yeah.
He's young.
And you have to make weird stuff sometimes. But I think the point is that he isn't a super experienced director, right? And he was actually hired because he'd made a Saab commercial with a car racing a jet. It's a 30-second commercial.
That's right.
You can see it online now. It still looks pretty good for an 80s commercial. And we get a very similar version of that sequence right during the Highway to the Danger Zone montage the first time.
Right. Both of the Scotts they started commercials.
Yeah. And that makes sense.
Which was just like put up all the cameras, make the most expensive thing, and then we shoot it and we're done.
Slap the long lens on it so it looks good. I
get 85 cameras.
That's right. Yeah. Well, that used to be a more conventional path to get into feature filmmaking now, and now those worlds are siloed off from each other. So the point here is when you hire a guy based on a commercial that he made for a jet, you're not hiring him because of his storytelling chops. You're hiring him because he knows how to make the jet look good. Right? And I'm not saying that makes him a bad storyteller. In fact, I think Top Gun's pretty well made. But I would say that it tells you where the priorities are for the producers. What do they care about? Let's sell the jets. Let's make the jets look good.
Let's get the sheen good.
Let's make it look good.
Let's sop up those actors, make them see those beads of sweat. That's because that's how you sell humans, right? You get wet humans. Actually, that is how you sell.
That's how you
humans.
sell one if you're in a grocery store and need one. You know.
Oh my God! Like every cologne ad and every
the fresh produce.
And where you're just like, let's get some sex in here. Let's make it all wet up in here. We are simple creatures, is what I'm saying.
I just want to say Top Gun is pretty well made. And that's particularly true when you realize that they had absolutely no control over the planes. Like they were not able to tell the planes what to do. They basically had to film standard military operations and cut those operations together into an actual narrative with the planes. You know, they could apparently request flybys sometimes, but if they changed any military operation that was planned, the military would gouge them big time. Here's an example. They were on an aircraft carrier and they were supposed to film it against the sunset because that's how they'd started shooting the scene, and the carrier had to veer off course for a reason or the other. They're like, look, can we get 5 more minutes with sunlight here? And the military charged them $25,000 to change course for 5 minutes, for the
That's
lighting.
Awesome.
Sure, you know. So like they really don't have the money.
I don't care. This is all nonsense. But $25,000, like as a reasonable, we have to do.
That's
a lot
how
of
much
stuff.
aircraft carrier you get. Yeah, that's what it costs to rent this for 5 minutes.
I mean, I guess it makes sense because in order for me to get a second glass of soda, it's $8. But I don't know. That's crazy.
I don't know what soda you're buying. I think that's thrilling.
$8 sodas?
What is that
at
made
a
of?
movie theater?
Oh, I see it at theater.
Super sodas.
I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's funny to think of the guy who's out there counting up the numbers to get that $25,000 figure. This is what it costs. You know, I have the abacus here.
Yeah, they have an economics guy just always on set who's just that's 25. They just pulled that number out of their ass,
of course what they
didn't
did, because it was done in a hurry. There's no way they had that pre-figured out. That would be insane. So they're just well, that's what it costs. It's very much a gouging operation, right? That's the deal here. So that's a really harsh set of parameters to have to make a film in, especially when the film is about the planes. right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think he deserves a little credit for how well he stitched that together, given those facts. Now I
Yeah.
want to talk a little bit about how does Tony Scott sell this military fantasy. Okay, so the first thing is, and it blows your mind when you really think about it, almost the entire movie of Top Gun takes place at magic hour or sunset.
Yes, it's perfect.
This movie is never happening. Nothing happens before 4 p.m. or after 7 p.m.
So inefficient.
It's absurd. It's utterly absurd, right? Like, and you look at the light in it, the light is consistently golden, warm, or red.
It's awesome.
It looks gorgeous, and it only exists in California for 30 minutes to an hour. So like they're shooting at a very particular time of day all the time to make the look of this movie happen, right? And the reason for it is that that magic hour makes the whole thing look sexy. It's one of our favorite kinds of lighting. It's mood lighting.
It's the most interesting lighting.
It's gorgeous.
Hands down.
But, it just is it's tremendously problematic for a production, and it's dishonest about how time works. You know what I mean?
I love that when like a director or like the AD comes to like the director of photography and is like, we're shooting this only from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m.
Yeah.
And just the DP going like,
I'll see you at pubs. I'll see you at the bar.
I am. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Because it's also like the best. Like DPs get off on that shit.
It looks
right?
great.
They're just like, oh, the best looking shots. Everyone cares. Like, I'm the rock star today.
Well, and sometimes what they would do, from what I could tell, I'm not a DP, but from what I could tell, sometimes they would also use sunlight to like bounce off windows or floors to create the illusion of late afternoon or almost sunset, which wasn't actually there.
Yeah, your interiors. Yeah. That's like typically how like a production like this would go. Is all exteriors are only during the times you said, and interiors, it's like they black out the world if they can, like essentially try to make their locations a studio for the interiors, and then create a source light that is essentially looks like the sun, big, soft, through a lot of diffusion, add a lot of orange or yellow, et cetera, et cetera.
So I think for the audience to understand, I mean, we can keep throwing the word, it looks awesome and sexy and everything, but I think for you to really understand what that means.
People have seen it.
Well, you have to think about, where have you seen that lighting most consistently? And the answer is, you've seen it when you imagine a California sunset. When you imagine a vacation photo of a beach or California in particular, that's the image that you usually think. Okay, because that lighting creates the feeling of relaxation, right? And like peace and like and just like an enjoyable time.
A more tropic kind of.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, like, for someone who lives in a cloud-covered area, that obviously would be ideal.
That's right. So think about what we're saying then when we're couching the planes in the tropic vacation lighting.
Well, mom and pop have to deal with tornadoes over in Oklahoma, so
I love it. It's essentially, it's mitigating the danger, right? Like, that's what's happening here. He's mitigating the danger, not necessarily in a conscious way, but in his attempt to make the planes look awesome and the world look so great and iconic. That's how he did it. Okay, so another tactic he employs, which should be familiar to all of us as internet consumers, is that he is using his costume and art to create a nostalgia version of the military. It's not a contemporary 80s version of the military. It's actually a throwback version of the military. Okay, this film is made in 1980, probably 4 or 5, something like that, released in 86. But if you look at every outfit and car, almost every single thing that our leads are wearing, you'll see there is a consistent 50s, 60s inspired aesthetic. Right? Maverick's bomber jacket.
It's a great way to create like nostalgia for something that, like I know that Spielberg did it in Always as well. And it's like, it's interesting because you either have this is the most modern, kind of thing, or you have, remember the movies that you saw that were film reels of that time during a war or whatnot. Remember how they looked? Imagine that,
it's like that,
but now.
So I just want to list a couple of key items that sort of sell this idea. So Maverick's outfit, which I think we can basically reduce to the bomber jacket and Ray-Bans, That's all
Absolutely.
50s, 60s stuff, right? Charlie's
Yeah.
Porsche is an old Porsche. I want to say it's a 60s Porsche.
Right.
Her makeup and like even the color of her hair and stuff is very much like older pinup inspired, like Marilyn Monroe, somebody
Which
like
is
that.
interesting given the powerful hair of the 80s.
Correct. She also doesn't naturally have that hair color. She had to go off and shoot a different movie, and when they did pickups, she had the wrong color hair, which is why there's a couple of scenes where she's wearing a hat. Because they couldn't get her to get the hair color right. But the hair color was like a decision here. Also, I mean, this seems really obvious, but think about the music in this movie, right? Basically, all the music except for Kenny Loggins is stuff that was oldies at the time, right? You've Lost That Love and Feeling, which is, I think, the theme of the movie. Great Balls of Fire.
Mm-hmm.
Both of those are from that era, right?
Yeah.
And then if you look really carefully at, say, the art department and like the stylings of, say, Charlie's house, right, or some of the interiors of the, the flight school, you get this feeling like you're looking at a print ad from a bygone era, right?
Mhm.
Like the framing of it, and also just the architecture and the stylings of it. Like, are they religious about it? No, but the entire effect of these decisions is to give you a sense of, remember that bygone era when things were good.
Yeah, and specifically like the Mad Men
Correct.
era too. If you've seen
Correct.
Mad Men,
It's very much Mad Men. And remember, they're selling this to mom and pop in Oklahoma, which means what they're doing is they're evoking in them a sense of, this was the best time of your life. Right? This is the best time of your life. This is what you remember as the best time of your life. And that's what Top Gun is. It's like a military vacation during the best time of your life.
don't think, just go faster.
Right, exactly. Pump your fist, exactly. So this is really obvious when you think about it, but I have never thought about it until I started writing this argument. The Russians are almost entirely robots in this movie. Like, they're not people.
I mean, they are in a lot of franchises during this
I agree.
era,
It's
right?
really weird in this movie, though, because of two elements. The first is their face masks. The Russians apparently have the cool sunglasses masks, right? A thing that's like, I guess it makes sense for that to happen, but none of the American pilots have it. None of them. And if it was essential to operations, you'd think we would have it. But it's clear that the filmmakers like, these are not people. These are just like fighter pilots. Whereas our heroes
Is it weird?
don't have sunglasses.
Is it weird to you if I tell you that when I was a kid and I watched this, I wanted to be a Russian
Not at
fighter?
all.
I thought it was so
they
cool.
had cool look.
Just, I took solace in being like a faceless
Yeah.
cog.
They looked really cool, like, because their gear felt a
They're
little more
sleek.
modern.
Kind of alien
Yeah.
too, like untouchable.
Correct. They're
It
dehumanized.
made the nights go easier. Is all I'm saying.
When you crashed and burned and it wasn't pretty.
It wasn't pretty.
I understand.
Yeah, that's my childhood.
So another hilarious thing about the Russians is they don't speak, but they'll like physically gesture at each other all the time. Like, they'll do these like
Yes.
thumbs up or whatever, or nods, like they can see each other across from the plane. It's
Yeah, which
really
they can't.
stupid. It's like,
Which they have so low visibility.
it's so stupid, and it's very
That's so
funny.
good.
And again, they've removed the eyes and the voice of these people because those are two things that humanize the enemy,
Mhm.
right? And if you do that,
Can't have that.
if you do that, you don't care about fighting off, insert bad guy here. Now, they did say Russian, and Russian is a safe bad guy, but they still felt the need to eliminate the sense of conflict, the sense of meaning in this conflict by removing the humanity in it.
Yeah, that's exactly
Right.
right.
So, like, this is another thing that, like, super matters, and you never hear anybody argue about it. This conflict that happens at the end of Top Gun would have been World War III. Like,
Yeah, like the destruction of 5 MiGs
that is a
over
huge
Russian
huge
space,
incident.
or I guess not technically Russian space, like but
International
in no man's
waters.
land. Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's a huge incident. Obviously, like, the movie's selling you the idea that nobody wants to acknowledge it. That's why it's happening. But, like, I think the fascinating part of it is one of the first directors they approached, John Carpenter, outright refused to do the movie because he said that would be politically irresponsible. Like the conflict that you're creating at the end is politically responsible. I can't make that.
I love him so
Isn't that
much.
great? You know, like
Yeah, it's perfect Carpenter response to that
Right.
question too.
it's exactly. It feels very much like him and his whole like I'm not gonna do it because I don't want to.
It's because Carpenter loves to do that thing where he's just like, I see what you're all about, man. I based on how you're talking and what you're selling, man, I know what you're up to, man.
I mean, what I find particularly evocative about that is they didn't change it. You know what I mean? Like they changed directors, not the story, in light of that critique.
Oh, of course, because the like you said, what's the power at play? Bruckheimer and Simpson. You know?
Oh, of course, right. I mean, that's why that decision. That's why it went that way. But even for them to not consider that as a change, or I mean, I don't know. I don't know if they
doesn't
considered it or
align.
not, but they didn't make that change. So that's very telling. You know.
You know what I was thinking about, because you know how we're making a movie called Papa Bear.
I'm
Go
aware.
to seedandspark.com/fun/Papa Papa-Bear. Like we should take it to Ben Shapiro's his production company or whatever
Incredible.
they got going
Can
over
you
there,
imagine?
and see what they say. They're like, "Hey, do you?"
Can you imagine?
So it's
I hope he
about gay
films his
furries.
response and sends it to you. Like, what a thrill that would be.
Oh, that would be great.
What a thrill that would
You'd
be.
be like,
God,
God.
and now it's
damn.
time for Abe's favorite point. This is another way that Tony Scott sold this movie. He put a mountain of sweat in this movie. There is so much sweat. Now we keep making jokes about it, but like really think about this. Movies go out of their way to eliminate sweating. Almost no movie intentionally includes sweating unless it's a thing that would obviously have to be there. Or unless there are thematic reasons, again, like body heat.
We like dry humans and we like sopping wet.
We like them when they've
humans.
been through an ordeal and they're sweaty, and then they get perfectly clean, right?
But in the middle, it's like, what are you, clammy?
Yeah. What are you
sick?
clammy? Exactly. Good point, right? In this movie, like, not only are they sweaty the whole time, it's a plot point all the time, right? People are always in the shower, in need of a shower, sitting in a hot room, right? They have a bunch of like very famous lines about it, right? Like, Slider, you stink, right?
Slider,
stink.
Yeah. Yeah, I can smell your musk from
Yeah,
here.
exactly. That's not a line, but I like it.
No, it's I'm just doing jazz.
Maverick
you
comes
know?
over to Charlie's place for their first date and says, "I need to grab a shower." Right? It's like, what?
Yeah, because it's so fucking hot
so
out
hot.
here. And I am doing reps of something. You
It's
know?
reps of
like
something.
I'm just doing mad reps.
So if you have seen this movie, then we don't need to tell you why there's so much sweat. Just go watch the volleyball scene again. Right? Just go watch it. It is one of the greatest moments of latent homoeroticism in film history. You know, like it's just awesome for that. Everybody knows it. It's a thing we're all in on, and it's great. And I would say that is that's one of the few times that the subtext of the movie comes to the surface, right? And that subtext is these are hot men. These are all everybody in this flight school is a hot, healthy, sexy man,
meaty men.
You know, like on its face, it's so stupid to have a scene in Top Gun, a scene about training military operating like naval aviators, having them play volleyball and get hot in the sun. It's so dumb, right?
Yeah, it's weird that they didn't have just like a line of women watching that scene going like, ooh,
It might be too obvious.
It's too
on the nose.
You're right.
Right?
The Tony Scott wants us to all be the women.
Feel it, but don't see it exactly. You know, just feel it.
And remember, it's mom and pop in Oklahoma.
Right.
You are women. You are not men.
Now, just another reminder, this is in San Diego, one of the most temperate places in California.
So easy.
It's so cool
like
there.
even the summers are like, summers are better than like LA summers where because it'll get 100 in some summers, but most of the time
day.
it's just 72.
Yeah, like one day of that summer.
All the time.
Now, obviously that's changing, but like in general, especially in 1986, every room in this San Diego hellscape was 90 degrees.
It's like 120.
Yeah, they're always a little sweaty. It's so obvious that like you can't believe that it wasn't a thing people were talking about that much. You know, I mean, maybe it was a joke that we all loved so much that we never really talked about it. But like, it's a really big choice, and they keep doing it. You know, to sell the sexual energy of this fantasy. That's part of it. The hot men are here. I want to talk very briefly about Tony Scott's long lenses. A thing that I love talking about it. You know it.
Huge lenses.
He's got really long lenses. Correct. Yeah, very phallic lenses. So you guys, if you've listened to this podcast, know that long lenses means we're compressing the visual space, right? And the reason he's doing that here is some of them are artistic reasons, some of them are just practical reasons. The artistic reasons is that he's trying to create postcards. You know, he makes a lot of postcards in this movie, right? Because again, there's lots and lots of frames here where Top Gun kind of feels like the dangerous, sexy vacation you've always dreamed of, right? Like that's the idea. It also has the effect of making the planes seem more imposing, you know, because these flat shots of them, you get a real sense of the engines and the wingspan of them and stuff. So it kind of makes them feel bigger.
And the backgrounds are, you know, blurred into infinity.
Yes,
I mean, it is blue sky anyway, but like when you do see clouds and stuff, you're whipping by so fast because you're on this long lens. It just feels like, a warp speed.
Right. It makes the planes feel like they're going faster. You're absolutely right about that. Mm-hmm. It also it keeps them on camera longer because if they're flying toward us, it takes them longer to travel at us on the z-axis when we've compressed the space. So like we get a longer shot of them.
Impressive camera operation in this movie.
There really is.
I mean, it's nothing like. I mean, the best in the business are the people who like film like golf and stuff, but like it's on par with that.
Top Gun Maverick was one of the best filmmaking, like best camera operating filmmaking examples I've ever seen.
Yeah,
I think incredible.
There was a story about like for Edgar Wright when he was doing like comedy stuff where you do like I want to whip pan zoom, and he was just like after a few camera operators in movies he was just like it's not good enough. Can I just hire a guy who's just good at that? Do? And they were like go to soccer, go hire those operators.
The guy who does hockey
with those machines.
The guy filming hockey.
Yeah, because they're like pivot machines,
right? And they're so good at spotting stuff. So there's another practical reason that Abe kind of alluded to for why Tony Scott's using long lenses, and it's that he has to hide where they actually are when we're filming the plane stuff. The planes are almost all being shot in Nevada at an Air Force base. So like you have to kind of hide the landscape so that you don't see that we're no longer in San Diego. And they do a pretty good job of that.
You have to avoid. No, that's
smart. That's just practical filmmaking. That's what every film has to do. I don't fault him for that. I just think like it is a good way of marrying your creative endeavor with the practicality of your shoot.
And it limits your shots. Yeah. Sometimes you just can't look down, and you're like, well, fuck.
That's right. Exactly. So he did a great job here of achieving a believable amount of plane maneuvering that seemed like it was narratively driven, even though it definitely wasn't when he filmed it. Also, like there was a lot of just like inconsistencies that are really obvious when you take 3 seconds to think about it, like the idea of the hard deck, another phallic term. And like how they're always supposed to be up in the clouds. They're never above the hard deck in this movie. Fucking ever. They're always below the hard deck all the time in this movie. They're flying over hills and stuff. You know, it is actually extraordinarily dangerous what they're doing. And I just want to make this point, even though I'm not laying this at the feet of the filmmakers. I'm just saying this. Somebody did die making Top Gun. Like their stunt plane pilot died doing the flat spin.
Really?
Yeah. That's what I read.
Oh, that's...
Yeah.
They blew up a plane for Top Gun?
A plane went into the ocean for Top Gun.
Holy crap,
that's my understanding.
I didn't know that. That is...
Yeah.
That is a death and man.
Well, like the exact scene
the military was probably...
Well, they were paying for it and blah, blah, blah. I mean, like the exact scene, I'm pretty sure, where they're filming the stunt that would later turn into Goose's death. I believe that's when the pilot lost control and died. This is on Wikipedia.
Whoa.
So I just want to make sure that I have that correct. Yeah.
No, that's
Art
crazy.
Scholl was his name. He died filming Top Gun when his plane failed to recover from a spin and plunged into the Pacific Ocean. And they never recovered him or the plane.
Oh man.
Yeah, pretty wild, right?
That's wild.
Maybe that's an
I never
interior
heard
shot. Maybe that was like they're getting the actual footage of him inside doing it. He was 53. He was a stunt pilot, and this is, you hire a stunt guy to take these risks, and that's what happened. It's a real bummer. So again, I'm not laying that at the feet of the filmmakers. I'm just saying, like, it is actually dangerous what they're doing, and somebody did die doing it. So it's serious. Now I want to talk just briefly about the real world impact of Top Gun. And I didn't do a lot of deep research here. I just, want to connect the thematic dots here. So the thing that everyone says, and they're not wrong, is that there was a noticeable bump in military recruitment after Top Gun came out. That number there is widely disputed, like whatever that number is. It's been as high as 500% 5 times, right? And apparently that number has been debunked by people. But even like the staunchest, this made very little impact, will say that it were at somewhere between 8 and 10%. It grew because of Top Gun. And there's plenty of like anecdotal evidence for people who served in the military. Like, absolutely, I signed up because of Top Gun. And the point being, like, a lot of those people that signed up for Top Gun signed up under the influence of an idea of the military that isn't accurate, right? Where the movie intentionally precluded facts and the real world experience of the military because it was so cool, I think probably
it lives with
harder
you.
to quantify, but just as real, is the fact that this movie trivialized military conflict and impact in the global arena. And what I mean by that is all the acts of war in this are not political or international crises. They are in neutral waters, and they're more interesting as personal conflicts for our pilots who are trying to grow and be good teammates. That's actually what is emotionally matters here, is that Maverick learned how to be a good wingman, not, hey, we just started a war with Russia, who has nukes.
Exactly.
Right. And the film, by assuming that, and by the way, it's not even like that's wrong. It's just that it has this byproduct of making us not take the acts of war seriously and not thinking about it, right? And I'm not able to say how bad that is or how much harm that is, but I am saying that there has been studies, and there's no denying that those kind of decisions do have this after effect, and it is a concern. This is a conversation that Mike and I have all the time when we talk about Call of Duty games, right? Like Call of Duty games, his argument has always been it's a military propaganda tool, and my argument has always been, okay, but let's evaluate the game piece of it because that's our job. But he's not wrong. He's absolutely correct that there is a byproduct of trivializing the impact that military conflict has on other groups of people that are not us.
Mm-hmm. And the glamorizing of military, kind of like the cool aspect of military.
So we did a video at Cracked 8 years ago or something. I don't even know how long it was, that showed terrorist recruitment ads that were clearly based around Call of Duty. They showed terrorists loading up and shooting rocket launchers with these clear cinematics that are based around Call of Duty moves. So it's clear that as a tool to make people think, to buy into a fantasy, it is successful. Cinema can be successful at that, and I'm not even I'm not accusing this film or Top Gun of being a terrorist or anything like that. I'm just saying the techniques do translate to actual recruitment videos. Like, you've seen it,
and there's multitudes of reasons why people might join the military.
Absolutely. Of course, and this is where my caveats at the back door come in. So, I'm not here to say the military is evil or bad or anything like that. That's not my purview here. But I do think that everyone would agree that the purpose of the military and the actions of the military shouldn't be romanticized. That they need to be met with clear-eyed analysis, because people die as a result of military action. And sometimes that means we need to criticize the military. You know?
Yeah. And I think that ultimately, especially, I mean, it's been true for ages, and it's never more relevant than now, even as we start to see corporate branded movies and such. The concepts at play, like the zeitgeist and informing that zeitgeist, and kind of, you know, the equivalent analogy would be like the impressionable kids watching Jurassic Park and wanting to become, you know, a paleontologist. Yeah, that happened to me. It doesn't seem like that hurts anybody. Doesn't necessarily hurt anyone.
It doesn't put them in harm's way.
Put them in
know,
harm's
like,
way either.
right.
Yeah, but it's like the power that movies have on people watching these things, and when you can fudge the details, it now becomes a powerful and loosely, and more often false than true kind of argument. That's the power of propaganda.
Because all movies are about excluding reality to some degree so that you get the pure distilled feelings. And the issue becomes that when the thing you're excluding is something that has very significant real world consequences, so that you can create a film that trivializes those things because it's fun, you have potentially created a propaganda film.
Yeah.
You know, I don't personally think there's anything wrong with watching or enjoying Top Gun as a work of fiction. You know, and I don't think there's anything wrong with making a film that's like, I'm going to make this the sexiest, coolest, best thing you can. But I would hope that as a filmmaker, I would at least consider the potential impact and also the moral implications of using a significant real life institution as a pure instrument of fun and fantasy.
In other words, you are on team John Carpenter. We got him. We got him, Adam Ganser.
That's where I line up. But also, Abe, I think someone could very easily come and say, you know what your problem is, Adam?
Mm-hmm.
You just don't feel the need.
The need for speed?
That's right. You just
That's
don't
right.
feel the need.
It's true. The call of the speed is deep.
I mean, I'm getting
it is
old
deep
now,
in
so
us all.
Don't put me in one of those plane cabins, man. I don't want to be in there.
You put me in a closed space with Tom Cruise.
You're having a great
just,
day.
Just a bulk of sweat, just a bulk of it, and you tell me words like need and speed.
Yeah,
I'm probably singing a different tune than the military is bad. Okay.
So I mean, I'm aware that most of our audience probably has very strong, potentially anti-military feelings, and I get that, and I understand why. But if there's anybody in the audience that served in the military, feels very pro-military, I just want to reiterate that this is not intended to denigrate the work you do or the function of the military in society. That's a much larger conversation. It's just about not making a film that trivializes it. That's the issue.
It's tough to thread the needle of like talking about propaganda in this way, because people have strong opinions about it, and people think that side has propaganda. We don't.
Right.
Or
Correct.
Some people think everyone has propaganda, or some people
Correct.
say there is no such thing as propaganda. I can think for myself. There's so many different iterations of human that I think you did a good job here of kind of, the analysis is on point. How do you manufacture something? What are
and
the
also,
techniques employed?
I bet that, I mean, Jared Bruckheimer doesn't give one single shit about what I think, and nor should he. But like, I imagine that he would say, if he was asked, like, I never was trying to make a recruitment tool. Like, that was not the goal. I just wanted to make a fun movie in a place where we hadn't seen it. And he did do that. You know what I mean? Like, he did do that. But I think I think that you can still make propaganda that way. You know?
Oh yeah, I mean, in the same way that you can just be like, I'm just trying to make the most successful business, and then before you know it, you're turning on profits and gouging, you know, like people out of their good money.
This is a
there's
story
ways
all the
things
time.
can be corrupted. We're not saying the corruption is here, but we are saying this is how the corruption can be utilized, and often
100%.
is. And I do think that, I mean, I'm not speaking for you, but I do think that Top Gun and things like Call of Duty are powerful tools.
Agreed.
because of the sensational aspect of everything. Their lives being taken, that's like the most insane aspect of humanity, life and death. The tools are crazy, guns and high speed vehicles, especially for boys, are taught to be the coolest thing in the world.
The way they treat the planes,
it's romantic.
The way they treat the planes in this movie, the way the emotional weight they're given is really staggering when you step back and think about it. Because like they'll say things like, that's a big gamble with $100 million plane, Lieutenant, right? But they'll say it in the context of, you're not good at piloting today, man. But like when
it's
they're
about a human story, or
right,
right.
Right. But when they're doing
like
a good
that.
job, it's basically a joyride.
Yeah, and when you write a screenplay, you seek out, what's the joyride of my film? When am I going to get?
Totally.
Most films that are made often have a segment that is akin to what has been called the fun and games sequences.
Correct.
And some films have multiple. And it's the concept of like, what is the most entertaining moment on my movie? How can I maximize that? That is what the blockbuster movie is designed to do, right?
Absolutely. That's what you're paying for.
Yeah, to streamline that heroin straight into your veins.
Right.
And
give me them feels. Yep.
And if we are siding with the aspect of we want the most awesome movie, aren't we also saying to ourselves that we don't whatever for the sake of that purpose, whatever we do, maximize the awesomeness? If you do that, you are a successful movie. If we make that the barometer of success, people are going to start aspiring to that and nothing else.
I think for a pretty long time we did.
I think we still do. I think that's what superhero movies are, right?
Yeah, superhero movies, I think, manage to get away with that without feeling like propaganda, because they have a premise that nobody believes
it's fantastical.
Is real.
They're not trying to ground it in reality,
right.
really.
Top Gun, ostensibly to the naive 1986 audience, was at least a version of reality.
Mm-hmm.
This is nothing happens that's ostensibly magic there, other than the magic of Tom Cruise wooing our hearts on screen. But everything else is ostensibly could happen in real life.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously that's not true given all the things we've said, but that's the way they're selling it. Also, I just want to say, this is not an argument for its morality, but Top Gun Maverick was one of the best action movies I've seen in 5-10 years.
There is
since Mad Max Fury Road.
I actually rewatched Top Gun Maverick recently.
Did you find it good?
Yeah. But I did realize in the second viewing that so much is earned by basically 20 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
2 sequences of 8 or so minutes where it's basically Tom Cruise just capping fools.
Toward the third act, right?
Yeah, they have an intro "Welcome to school, bitches," and then they have another one where they have another montage where it's we need to be better, and I can make you better, and they have those 2 montages that are kind of Act 1, Act 3 bookends, the outskirts of Act 2, and they're all the other scenes are whatever. Those fucking things had me so high and I don't know. It's just it's crazy how much goodwill is earned by just a good sequence. When they fucking nail it and all cylinders are firing,
it makes you want to cheer in the theater. Absolutely.
The music's awesome. It all does it. Yeah. You are just I don't give it. I'm not even going to focus on the next 4 scenes. I don't give a shit.
I'm just going to be here, having the maximum fun.
Exactly.
I mean, and I'll say, allegedly from a friend who was working on that set, apparently there's almost no CGI in the plane fighting sequences.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
Which really blows my mind. Some of that stuff's whoa.
With drones as they are, because that's what they did a lot of the air stuff is drone stuff. And with how they are and how light they are and how fast they can go, it's insane the shots that we can get now that are not necessary for CG 10 years ago.
I mean, and here we are pumping our fist again because
Right.
and that tells you. I mean, Bruckheimer and Don Simpson were right about the entertainment value of this idea.
Mhm.
They were 100% right. Tom Cruise is 100% right about the entertainment value of the idea. It works,
And
you know.
and
It
if you're kind of examining American cinema as kind of like a school of America, and I really do suggest that people look at history in that way, like in a way, it's reflective of the culture that the wants and desires and fears of the culture itself through the times. You can do that with any culture. They're also right about mom and pop in Oklahoma. I think that's contingent on their vision. Like that's why they decided all these decisions and went the propaganda route. But like at the time, that was the most lucrative and biggest audience one could get in 1986.
I mean, that's their way of saying box office.
Yes.
That's really what it's a shorthand for box office. It's a group of people that they equate to biggest box office we can get is mom and pop in Oklahoma. You know,
and there's the most American aspect of it all, you know.
Well, I mean, that's what it always comes back to, right? I mean, we could have a whole thing on Succession. Maybe one day you should have a Succession podcast, Dave. I don't know. You know what I mean? I love that show. I really like it. I like it as like it's one of my favorite versions of theater. You know, like as in like you could see one act plays a lot in this if you just watch episodes of Succession. But I digress. Succession is really good at bringing to the surface.
I know what you mean, though.
The things that are also powering the decision making here. You know,
in terms of like power dynamics and such.
Yeah,
it does feel like a real life Succession thing, but it's funny because a lot of narratives also deal with that. So it's just. To me, it's just clear that you've been watching Succession.
Well, you're not wrong. I have been watching it.
You're like, yeah, it's very true to life. I do that all the time, man. You can tell the last time I watched Deadwood because it's just the shit. Because it's just the shit I want to talk about. I'm just like, that's what Community is, man.
I keep
that's
trying to bring up Cowboy
about.
Bebop because
You just want to talk about Cowboy Bebop?
Dude, I just finished it. I just finished it and I cried my eyes out for an hour.
Let's fucking go. Let's talk about Cowboy Bebop.
Man, yeah, we should because I
love it. There's nothing better.
Yeah.
What a great pleasure it is to just like have a friend who we've seen the same thing.
Yeah.
And just be like, hey, buddy, we both know what we're gonna say, but let's just
do
say
it
at each other and
fun.
feel good.
Yeah, because it's fun.
I encourage everyone to go do that now. Yeah. It's one of the greatest feelings in the world, and it's useless and, dare I say, propagandistic.
Oh, see,
that's
now
the word, right?
You've come back with that. You've come hard with that broad
I'm coming
definition.
hard, dude. I'm coming hard.
Definition of propaganda again. Really thrills me. Anyway, Abe, it's been such a pleasure to talk to the actual Top Gun.
Yeah, dude. I was gonna tell you when you were talking about those MiG, the Russian masks.
The MiGs. Yeah.
One of the presents that he gave me later in life, or he gave the three brothers. I have two brothers. He gave the three children of his sister. Gave us a real life fight helmet. I clearly am good at military terminology.
He gave you a real fight helmet.
A pilot's helmet, I guess. And it had like the thing, it had all the pieces, and it was the coolest thing in the world. And one of the things that I would do is I would go into my closet, close my closet so I was in darkness, put on the helmet, and act like I was in a plane. And that was, and then later that summer, I went to college. This has been Directorpiece Theater. That's a great theory. I love talking about the motivations for things, but I love even more talking about the mechanics and the tactics of things.
Me too.
And Top Gun's a great one. Tony Scott's a fascinating kind of figure that I'm sure we can talk about. I mean, there's
been other movies that we could talk about.
We've kind of mentioned, but we can talk about him as a commercial director and how his influence and like there's so many aspects of him.
There's so few movies that a director gets hired based on their commercial work. It's pretty wild that one of the most popular blockbuster films of all time.
Yeah.
That's what they did. Also, by the way, critics panned this film. Like,
I mean, yeah,
Top Gun
who
got
gives a
really
shit?
bad reviews. I know, but I think it's a fun note to remember in history because
Yeah, it
like
is fun.
Tom Cruise, like literally just like planed himself down into Cannes last year with Top Gun Maverick, and they gave him a Palme d'Or for it. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, it's so funny.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
Like that guy.
he deserves it. He deserved one.
That fucking guy.
You know?
mean, you don't become Tom Cruise without actually knowing really, really well what roles are good and what stories are good and what stories aren't good.
Well, it's funny that you say that, Abe, because I almost did a director piece on Mission Impossible 2, which
Mhm.
is one of his first films that he produced.
Well, I look forward to that one.
Yeah, and that one, so like, there's some interesting conflict between him and John Woo on that film.
Ooh.
Because like he wanted John Woo, and then he definitely regretted John Woo, from what I can tell. So maybe I'll do that one. Maybe I'll write that one out, and we'll do that next time.
Little director sneak theater. I like it.
Sneak rector piece theater.
Directorpiece sneaker? No, I can't get it. It's not there. Someone's gonna put it in the comments,
You're
and
too
I'm gonna
loose,
go.
Cougar.
Of course it is.
You're too loose, Cougar.
Too loose. You're too loose, Cougar. I love it. Fucking Top Gun. Well, I don't know. How do you end these things?
Throw your dog tags into the sea and then stare meaningfully at it.
and then we shake each other's hands, look
For
each
a
other in the
good
eyes,
hour.
and slowly back away.
Abe, you could be my
Yes.
wingman anytime.
Oh man, let's go wingman it up. We're both of us are wingmen, and no one
And
is.
no one actually flies this plane.
flies the plane.
We
I don't
certainly
know.
can't land the plane, as you can see.
I've been Top Gun.